Welcome to Krista's Spiritual Talks. I'm excited to have Lian Shoemake here today. Um, I had a reading from you, what about, I don't know, time's weird, 6, 8 months ago down in San Diego, and I can
Yeah.
attest that you were right on. And it was exactly what I needed to hear on my spiritual journey at that point. So, for people that have never met you and not aware of what you do, can you kind of describe how you help people?
Sure. So I call myself a spiritual intuitive coach. And within that, I also have psychic abilities as something I use to assist folks with, and mediumship if that's something that would be an assistance to them as well. But what I really do is I try to empower folks to recognize and connect to their own intuition and trust it so that they can always have the ability to get clear guidance and know what that looks like. So that's my broad strokes in terms of what I do is I help folks to connect with their own intuition so that they have that clear guidance moving forward.
So helping empower in that way. I was reading on your website where you said you're professionally trained, and a lot of people just are born with these gifts or that type of thing. Um, so what's your story? Did you know at a young age that you had these abilities, or did it come on later?
Yeah, so I learned a lot in retrospect. So the professionally trained piece, I did go through some things in terms of like psychic reading development, not so much on the skills part, but on the how to apply it to work piece. But in reality, my background, I was actually a high school English teacher once upon a time.
Uh-huh.
And beyond that, I got into work with my local teachers union, which led to me working for the union as a negotiator, an organizer, a mentor, a coach, a trainer, and all these other things that I've been using professionally for years and years that really roll into what I'm doing now. But on the quote unquote psychic part, that really came apart about more so a few years ago, a number of years ago, when I was dealing with my own crisis of faith for my own intuition. It
Uh-huh.
was a tangential relationship issue that I knew was not right for me. I knew it wasn't what a good situation for me, but I didn't like that answer. It felt like it was supposed to be something different, or I wanted a different answer. So I ignored my own intuition. I started reaching out to readers. I mean, everything across the board, tarot, intuitive, Akashic readers, astrology, whatever. And I was just going into this whole really tailspin for me, looking for answers in other places. And that became an emotional drain and it became a financial drain. And the reality of the situation was that it was exactly as I quote unquote knew it to be, but still I was looking externally for that. So in that process, I kind of bottomed out at one point where, financially I couldn't even keep doing that. But as as the universe works, I was connected along the way with some folks who said, you have the ability to do this yourself. You have your own intuition.
Hmm.
You can find your own guidance. You don't need to call me 3 times a day, to ask the question, what's going to happen next? So,
Right.
I wasn't necessarily in a space the whole time to receive that or to hear that or to understand it. But when I got there to the point where I had to do something different, that's when I did this internal piece and started recognizing, I kind of knew this, not kind of, I knew this all along. I already knew this answer. So I had to do a deep dive in terms of, why I wasn't trusting that. And that kind of started my path on here. That's where I got connected with this one teacher, Sarah Wiseman, who
Mhm.
teaches in the same vein of, trusting your intuition, spiritual intuition. And everything just started clicking. I became this voracious student again, and I wanted to read everything, and I wanted to take courses, and I just wanted to get more. So it was really just, that was, I guess, what you would call my awakening into this. When I had to bottom out myself to where I was receptive to the information and the guidance that was most helpful to me. And I understand, I incorporate that into my work. I understand people are at different places because I know where I was. No matter how great the advice was, I wasn't hearing it because of where I was. So having grace for that is a big piece of it. So that's why I kind of do the work the way that I do it now, more so in the empowering you to trust your own intuition as opposed to, placing something on you that you're supposed to take and then the use is gone once you leave the meeting. So
So it
That's a little bit about it. Yeah.
sounds like that you're playing it forward from what you've learned. So if you took from the beginning stages of when you were looking for help to where you are at now, is it just the perspective you're looking through, or what's the main thing that brings? Because I can tell just looking at you, there's more of a sense of harmony and internally, right? Or how would you describe that?
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the journey that we go through. You're really always being prepared for what comes next, even if you don't realize that. You having no idea what comes next. I almost think about the Karate Kid, if you remember that movie from the '80s, the original one,
Yeah,
where the kid is like he's painting the fence and waxing the car and buffing the floor, and he
yeah,
doesn't see any meaning for that. But hey, I was learning karate the whole time. I didn't even know it. So that's
right.
kind of how it was with me. All these other things that seem completely unrelated, all incorporate into what's happening now. So my perspective now is much broader. That there's no wasted experiences. We're where we're supposed to be,
Hmm.
even if we don't like it. that that's part of being in a carbon sack, being a human. Yeah, there's things we don't like, there's things we don't enjoy, but they're all necessary for us, for our growth, for our soul growth. So that's the difference in my perspective now, as opposed to feeling like stuff is happening to me, as opposed to I'm experiencing this right now.
So
Yeah.
self-empowerment. So yeah, you can learn
Yeah.
from it and move on. So, for people that aren't familiar with what you do, and if they're considering using you as a life coach, intuitive, is there a certain strength that you are more proud of that you do, or how would you describe how you would help somebody?
Yeah, so I always start with where the person is right now. So I don't have like a pre-packaged program that I offer. Oh, you'd be
Hmm.
good for my 12 weeks. I don't have that because it's always so individual to where someone is. And I think part of my work experience and working with teachers, working as a teacher first with a variety of students, I can get 40 students in a class. No two are the same. So learning how to, you know, what works for this or what works here. Then working with teachers in the union later on, that's an even broader perspective. So being able to identify where you are right now and through your working with your intuition as well as my own, what makes the most sense for where we need to go right now? What's the most important thing? I mean, folks can come with individual questions, which they often do, but sometimes that question isn't the one that really needs to be dealt with right now. It might be something else. And that's where I could come in. And that's why I say I supplement, I don't supplant. I will incorporate what I'm getting that I feel I'm guided would be helpful to you in this particular moment. And then I always say, take what resonates and leave the rest. But take the guidance for what it is. It's guidance. It's not replacing your intuition. So I'm always working with the individual from your position of strength, from your position of knowing your position of you. This guidance is already available to you. So I'm just helping along with that. So that's how I approach the work.
Well, I would think being a teacher too, because isn't there, and I'm not sure, but isn't there a lot of training in like we all learn differently, whether visually or you know what I mean? Because subconsciously, a lot we all have resistance to certain things. So it might be
Absolutely.
easier to work with that of how you could come in more through the back door a little bit. We don't do it on purpose, but we all have it. You know what I mean? So that's a good skill.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And and people do learn in different ways, and different things resonate. Like I know that I learn usually pretty quickly that I can be use a lot of humor with certain folks. That's going to be a way to get in. Or if others just need to hear it directly, very
Yeah.
directly, not rudely, but very clearly in a way that can't be misinterpreted. If I'm guided to do that, then I'll do it that way. So I think that all my experience in working with all different types of people over many years helps me to get a shortcut into what might be the most effective way to work with somebody. So yeah, that's definitely been a plus.
And I was also thinking, and this is just my perspective, but being a teacher seems a little more conservative. And then moving into the work, do you do this full time or
Yeah, so I actually retired from the teachers union a few years ago. So now I dedicate this as what I do for a business. Yeah.
was that different, kind of moving into a whole different field as far as how others perceived you or?
Yeah, that's interesting how others perceive me because, I was kind of, in the closet doing this for the last couple of years of my working career, and a
Right.
manager actually found my website. I had the website up, and he said, "Oh yeah, we saw your psychic reader website,"
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, yeah, okay, so it's out there, but that's more so, and that was a learning experience for me too, because you have this internal thing about how others will perceive, and then you start going into, this whole fear thing, and you create these negative fantasies about what's going to happen, none of which are true, but you still spend
No.
time
Yeah.
occupying on that. And then when, the universe says, well, we're taking that sheet off. Okay, now what?
Right.
Then you realize, that when you're doing what you're supposed to do, what you're guided to do, that's what you're supposed to do. Lumps and
Right.
bruises along the way, fine. So, yeah. So, in terms of how people perceive it now, I know that I've actually had some clients from my teaching days. Because
Mhm.
they found out and they said, "Oh, you'd be great. My son would be great to work with you on this." So yeah, it's been easier than I would have anticipated. As soon as I got all the cloudy fear BS out of my head, it became
Yeah.
much more clear in terms of how to do it and that I'm supposed to be doing it. Yeah,
So kind of letting go of that indoctrination. It's out there and I think it's dissipating, but it's a lot of people in this field have gone through that. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. So it sounds like, and tell me if this is correct, that you're doing your spiritual purpose. Would you
yeah, yeah.
describe it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's and when you recognize that, then so many other things, when you recognize that and believe it and trust it, so many other things just fall away. Things that might have been obstacle or may have actually been obstacles earlier fall
Mhm.
away. And that's not automatic for a lot of folks. And that's a question I get a lot. What's my spiritual purpose, right?
Right.
Which is the question, really, no matter what's going on. What am I supposed to be doing here? So once you recognize that for yourself, you just start noticing more things that look like what you're supposed to be doing. It's not that they start magically appearing, it's just you start noticing them because they've always been there. I mean, we're never off our spiritual path. It's just, are we focusing on other things instead? And recognizing the difference
And
is a big piece of it.
yeah. And it's not linear. I mean, there can be all sorts of things, you know what I mean? And it can also change over time.
Oh,
So,
sure. Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's pretty, it can get pretty deep really quickly. So when you're working with people, what's one of the bigger challenges that you faced in doing this type of work? Or have there been any?
So yeah, there's been some early on when for myself, a challenge was trusting what I'm quote unquote getting, right.
Right.
So because I have to set aside my own personal views on any situation that might come in front of me because that's not relevant.
Right.
The guidance for this person is what's relevant. So I've done that now, but early on it was a little more challenging. And just giving grace to the person that's in front of you. Everyone has their own life story. And whatever choices all of us have made when I'm in one chair and they're in the other chair, all of our choices have led us to that moment for a reason. So recognizing that has been really, really important too. So and challenges for me also include, releasing any attachment to an outcome because that's not my work. That's been really hard because everything else I've done, in teaching, the students need to get to a certain level, and the union work, we need the contract to look a certain way, or this grievance needs to resolve this, whatever. Everything is like outcome driven, and this really isn't to that extent because what I'm trying to do is get the folks to the point where they can learn what their own good guidance feels like and what it looks like. And then they're on their path, right?
Right.
To do that. And that's not my work to shape that. Beyond that, so that's hard for me, and part of that's ego because I've always been
Right.
really good about producing certain outcomes, and here uh, I have to let go of that attachment. That's something I still a little bit deal with. But I love when people come back and say this was helpful, and I can't guarantee that that's going to be the result. I hope that's the result, but all I can do is what I can do in the moment. And finding grace with myself for that has been really, really important for me to grow to that level to do. Yeah.
Well, that is a tough one because energetically, then you're putting it on your back, and that can kind of take you down too. Like if you're feeling it's up to you to help, it's to the person to do their own work. Ultimately, you can help guide, but yeah. So
Right, right.
yeah, that's a fine line.
Yes, it is.
So if somebody was doing, let's say they wanted to sign up for life coaching, spiritual or life coaching, do you just have a certain package, or is it just depending on when you're working with somebody, how often they wanted to come do work? And do you do it through Zoom or in person or?
Yeah, so my work is through Zoom, except for when I do expos. Those are like mini sessions, really, because you
Yeah.
don't have as much time there. And but I've met a lot of connections with clients through that. But to do the actual work for coaching, I'd always say, well, we're going to start with one session first to begin, and then we do the assessment together in terms of what we need moving forward. Then we just set it up from there. Maybe we need more consistent work up front, or maybe it's okay. We talk, we come up with some ideas, and I'll say, okay, just view things through this filter for, let's say, for about a month. Just look at things through this filter and see what comes up, and then we can talk again and see where we need to go. So it's really non-linear for the ones who are just looking for, I want to plug into a package. I just don't work that way. Right now anyway, I haven't been guided to do it that way. There are some things I think are fairly universal, which we'll probably deal with in that initial session. But beyond that, kind of want to see what makes the most sense for the individual person.
So do you have questions then to kind of just see where they are in different aspects of their life? Or,
Yeah.
okay,
Yes, absolutely. I usually begin, I got this from one of my teachers with, are you involved in any what you would call spiritual practices right now, whatever that means to you? Meditation. I mean, do you work with cards? I mean, do you anything like that? I ask a little bit about religious background, not for any judgment purpose, but just to kind of know if there's some structures or thought processes in place right now that you're adhering to,
right.
and what impact that might have on anything that we might do moving forward. And I'll say that's been something that's come up quite a bit. There's been folks who are at that point where they've had this really strong religious upbringing. Then they're having their, for lack of a better term, spiritual awakening at the moment that I happen to connect with them. And it seems incongruent with what they've learned their whole life, this religious background, that teaches these tenets, and then what they're experiencing in real time right now. And there's this incongruence, and that's what brings them. How do I reconcile this? So I always ask that as a foundational question, also, just to kind of see where they are when they're coming to me, and the answers can vary, and then we go from what's happening right now. What's happening right now? Where do we need to go from here?
Have you noticed any patterns of people that are attracted to do work with you? Or is it random, just all over the board?
There are patterns within the randomness, I would say.
Okay.
When you go to the expos, you just get whoever's there. But even that isn't completely random, because those are folks who would be inclined to go to. Usually, they're
Right.
marketed as a psychic fair or a healing arts fair. So it seems random, but it's not really that random. Then within that, I'll be honest, it's been really all age ranges and
Mhm.
both genders, mostly females for my work for whatever reason, but not exclusively by any means. And you know, the ones who seem to come the most are kind of at that point where they're looking to, I want to say level up, it sounds judgmental, but to shift in some way from where they've been. I guess that's not uncommon for anyone who would seek guidance, but really in the way that where what they've been doing either is plateaued or absolutely isn't working for them in that moment, and they're receptive to hear. I guess that would be the common theme. I don't get folks who are really resistant or who just said, tell me what's going to happen. I don't get that. I know some
Yeah.
folks do, depending on how you do the work, but I just don't get those folks, at least not anymore. I did initially, but I changed my intention. I changed my marketing, frankly,
Mhm.
and for whatever reason, the folks who come to me seem to be the right folks, regardless of where they are. It seems to be the right fit at the right time. I'm really grateful for that.
Have you ever had that experience where you just lose track of time and you're such in your passion that it just feels wonderful?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, yes, yes. That happened. That could be as simple as like a meditation. Like in the morning, I'll say, okay, let me just meditate for a few minutes. And then an hour and a half later, say, oh my goodness. So
Right.
yeah, that could happen.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you're in doing your work or what you are meant to be doing here, that can happen too, the joy of helping other people.
Oh,
So,
yes.
is there something that you think is important to tell people that maybe aren't familiar with your work that you do? Anything come to mind like that people
Yeah.
tend to ask or yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just really, really important to, think about how we make our decisions because that's what it really comes down to. How do we recognize guidance? What does clarity feel like? I think that we probably don't spend enough time with that. So I do a lot of that work up front too, in terms of what does clarity feel like? What does yes feel like? Because that's usually where folks are. I don't know how to make this decision, or I don't know so much because they don't realize they already have the answer. I always say, listen, it's in the present moment, it's in your body. That's where your guidance system is. What does that feel like? And that is something, it's like a foundational tool that I try to use to help people with. So I'd say to anyone, either who's just watching or just thinking about it, what criteria do you use to make decisions in terms of
Oh,
what's right for you? I
oh,
mean, it
yeah.
sounds really basic, but for some of us, it's like, and it was for me for a while, it's like, well, I don't trust myself. I'm going to ask somebody else. And that's my decision-making process. Somebody else who's willing to, tell me what to do. Okay, that's my decision. That didn't work for me. Ultimately, I don't think it works long term for other folks. So, analyzing what criteria you use to make decisions and then to trust it. And I almost invariably, I'd say when I bring that up to folks, is to think about times when you were spot on, and you can always do that. And think about times when you had that feeling and you had that knowing, but you didn't do it, and it was a very different outcome. Everyone has those stories. So bringing it back to that, because the answer and the guidance is always going to be available. So that's one thing I tried to stress.
That is a great one. And I have done that myself, not listened, right? It should be taught in kindergarten. It really should,
Right?
trusting your inner guidance.
Yeah.
Because once you have it, you're really powerful,
Oh my goodness.
and you're
Yes.
not affected by so many things, all these experiences. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would you recommend getting a hold of you?
Okay, so my website, that's my Gen X logistics, if anyone goes to websites anymore, is lianintuition.com. I'm also on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, all at Lian Intuition. So if you go to any of those platforms, I'm available there. You can message me through there. My email is lian@lianintuition.com. And you can reach me directly. So I try to make it as simple. If you can remember Lian Intuition, you can find me almost anywhere.
Would
And
yeah.
I welcome inquiries. Eager to work with folks.
And it's Lian is in Nancy, because I was thinking M. So just to clarify that. And,
Yes,
and
people
I'll
have made
go
me
ahead.
Irish my whole life.
What's that?
People have made me Irish my whole life with
Oh, is
Liam.
that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah. I'll go ahead and put that in the description too, all the ways to get a hold of you. And this has been wonderful. And I really appreciate the work you're doing. I think it's really important. So
oh, thank you. Likewise, and thank you for this forum because I know that you're bringing a lot of information to people who can use it. So I appreciate you and I appreciate this.
great. Thank you.